Greetings, everybody. Welcome back in to Mining Stock Daily. Continuing today with a corporate update from Filo, formerly known as Filo Mining. Filo Corp trades on the TSX with FIL. Happy to welcome in once again from the company's CEO, Mr. Jamie Beck. Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, Trevor.
We've got a number of drill results. It's been a little bit since you've been on the podcast, but drilling continues at the Filo del Sol property down there in San Juan province of Argentina. Again, long holes, lots of mineralization. So let's kick things off where you released the latest results this week. Hole 82, 83, and 85 were released. 82, not much there. 83 and 85 was really where the juice was. So let's talk about hole 83. This was at it extended the Filo Aurora Zone by 260 meters. So kind of describe to us what you're seeing here and kind of what the goal was with this hole.
Our sort of historical view on this Filo del Sol deposit had been that the mineralization trended very much north-south. And you can see holes dating back to sort of 2016, 17. They were shallow, and we put them sort of in directly north of that Filo deposit. And really what we've learned from the drilling in Aurora, what we've learned from our geological interpretations and some of the success that we've had from the drill bit and the geochemistry, coupled with some geophysics work that we've done, shows that, in fact, where this seems to trend as we move north is a little more to the northeast. And we tested that theory out last season with a hole up to the north. That was hole 60, which made a new discovery we're now calling the Bonita Zone. And couple that with the geophysics, we're really seeing that there's a good chance that Bonita and Aurora Zone connect. And 83 was a sort of a continuation on our path towards trying to prove that mineralization carries on as we move to the northeast, and very successful at doing so. So a great hit, a big step out about 250 meters or so northeast of our previous northern hole in Aurora.
Yeah, that hole returned over 1,100 meters of 0.57% copper equivalent. Obviously, there were some shorter intervals in there of some higher grade. So let's go over to that Bonita Zone where hole 85 was drilled. That returned 879 meters of 0.47% copper equivalent here. And within, you have these cross sections in the news release, Jamie, which I think are key because you pinpoint, there's no result. You pinpoint holes 87, 90, and 91. And that's really kind of in this gap between Bonita and Aurora. What is the status with those holes right now?
Yeah, so those holes are underway. They're all about somewhere between 400 and 800 meters deep at various stages. So, excited to see whether or not we can prove continuity between those zones. Likely results from those, Trevor, are going to be into late September or early October by the time we finish the holes and get assays turned around. So that's sort of how we are with those ones. And 85, just an unbelievable result. I mean, it's hard to put into a press release the impact that a hole like that has on the potential mineralized footprint. And I mean, you ran off the numbers earlier, but to put it in context, Josemaria, which is 13 kilometers away from Filo to our east, that has a 1 billion ton reserve at 0.47% copper equivalent, using the same sort of copper equivalency as we use at Filo. Hole 85 added a Josemaria to the deposit.
It ended in mineralization, but what was interesting here, reading through the news release, that mineralization seemed to come up on surface. It was pretty shallow, it seemed like.
There's a top zone of that hole that was a slightly different style. So it was quartz energite veins that we see at a target to the north that we call Marancellis. And of course, if you followed one of our Lundin sister companies, NGX Resources, they've had recent success drilling these sort of vein style mineralization at their they now call it Lunahuasi, but the ex-Potro Cliffs target. So sort of cool to see that it was something like 8 meters, so a nice mineable thickness of precious metals rich vein style sitting on top of hole 85 as well. And we've got other showings across the property as we move to that northeastern direction. So yeah, cool to see that crop up as well.
Yeah. So give us a sense of, we talked about those 3 holes between that gap between Aurora and
Bonita.
Bonita, sorry, it's right on the tip of my tongue. And Bonita. So we've talked about those holes. Where else? You got, I think, what is it, 9 drill rigs that's working throughout the winter down there. So obviously, so what is the strategy going on? Where are you going to be adding onto? There's a couple different targets I assume you might be going after as well.
We're sort of guiding drilling based on geophysics and what we're learning from the geochemistry. So objectives haven't really changed over the past couple of years. Fundamentally, we're trying to find the edges of this system. Mm-hmm. And it's been hard to do. I guess we're narrowing things in. We had a target to the north at Gemelos that you noted we had no significant values there. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's closed off. I think we'll continue to spend a bit of time and effort on understanding the geophysical signature up there, and maybe whether or not we can use what we've learned this year and hone in on different targets in that Gemelos area, which sits on the northern part of the deposit. Way to our south is an area called Flamenco. We put a couple of holes in there that were mineralized, altered, but didn't return the types of grades that we see over what we're getting at Aurora and Bonita. So, gradually over time, we're getting a better sense across the northern and southern extent of the land package. What we haven't really done much yet is east-west, and hole 85 was a good first step at that. We're doing some drilling across a potential underground at it. And you can see those labeled on our plan maps. Those are those geotechnical holes. FSGT is their sort of moniker. And those may end up, testing some of the potential eastern extensive mineralization as well. So we continue to try and poke at the edges. I guess objective 1. Objective 2 is learning more about the really high-grade zone in Aurora and around Breccia 41. So we've got a handful of holes that hopefully are on deck shortly, 84, 86, 78. Those are sort of clustered around that to give us a bit more info about that Breccia 41 mineralization, which has the potential to have a significant amount of metal in a very, very small volume. And then this sort of Bonita Aurora gap, those are the near-term extensions to where we've got better confidence that there's going to be mineralization there. So we're excited to advance, call it 3 of those objectives through the drilling. We've got those 9 rigs moving around, set up on making progress on all of those objectives.
Jamie, I almost forgot. I think I was in the middle of grilling cheeseburgers and hot dogs for the kids on the 4th of July when you also put out drill results. That was hole 72 and hole 80, 1,200 meters of 0.83% copper equivalent. That's in the Aurora zone from hole 72. Hole 80, another 1,200 meters of 0.67% at the Filo zone. And I don't, maybe we don't dive into the micro of these holes. What I'm thinking here is, and I remember asking Chris Taylor this with Great Bear at one point when him and I would talk frequently, and I said, Chris, you continue to put out these great holes, good intervals, high grade, and it's almost as if the market is expecting it and expect it so much it doesn't necessarily move the needle anymore. So I will pose the same question to you, Jamie. 1,200 meters. Good grade, anywhere from 0.5 to 0.8, 0.9% copper equivalent. Is this continuing to move the needle for the shareholders of Filo for your equity?
Moving the needle is different than it used to be, right? We're now a $3 billion market cap. So when we were, 2 years ago chatting, and we'd made the discovery around hole 41, it was easier to get those 10-15% swings on a day-to-day basis on the back of these spectacular drill results. But we're going to see less of that volatility, I think, on the drilling news. But I'm sort of not particularly concerned about that, because I think what this is building is it's fundamentally underpinning value,
Right.
and showing confidence in the overall size and scale of the deposit. These step outs are typically hard to value in a traditional NPV model. And that creates opportunity for mining specific investors who sort of can take a look at this and get a sense of, hey, they added a Josemaria with one hole. So we're building value or underpinning the value in the current share price, and it's we're seeing that in sort of elevated volumes, and we're seeing that in the transition of sort of how the shares are trading, and who are the holders. Where 2-3 years ago it was very sort of mining specific investment funds. Now Filo is an interesting way for generalist copper investors to play the story. They could go invest in Freeport, or Sandfire in Australia, and these are call them the ETFs of sort of copper investment. You can get in, you can get out, and play the copper thematic. But Filo now, with its market cap and with where we're trading on a daily liquidity stage, it's opening that up to bigger funds being able to get in and get out, and play not only the discovery side of the story, but also the sort of the more macro copper thematic side of it. So yeah, we're going to see. I think we'll see less day-to-day volatility on these drill results, but it's not particularly concerning, and I think it just really helps underpin the value of the story.
Has your job changed over the last couple of years because of less volatility in the equity?
My job's changed, but it's changed just sort of differently, right? It's
Right.
3 years ago, I was shouting at the top of my lungs to anybody who would listen about what this amazing deposit we were going to find is, and now we found it, and the goal has been, how do we convince people that there's still a lot of meat on the bone, and that there's still more for us to find here. And with each one of these big step outs, it's clear to me that we haven't yet sort of punched the edges of this system, and I'm convinced there's a few more surprises left at Filo del Sol.
When you're talking about billions of dollar in market capitalization, you can go out and raise a lot of money. You were able to do that earlier last month. Originally announced a $100 million financing that quickly got raised to $130 million. Obviously, with a lot of help from the Lundin Family Trust, and then some insiders came in. Very rarely in this type of market can companies go out there and raise that much money, Jamie. So talk to me about how this is being budgeted for the coming, I guess I would assume it's getting you budgeted for the next couple of years. I mean, I know these holes are expensive, but how far does this get you?
This probably gets us, Trevor, 18 months.
Okay.
If we continue to spend at, call it, the same rate that we are at the moment. So we spend anywhere between 20 to 30 million Canadian a quarter at this level of activity. And so given cash on hand, that gets us about an 18-month runway with this. So it's expensive for sure, and I'm in a very I'm sure a sort of enviable position in the junior mining space to be able to go out and raise that kind of money, and to be able to go out and do it at market with relative support from the existing shareholders is key there. Having the Lundins back it, BHP continue to participate and increase their ownership, and then we got a big check from BlackRock, the world's largest investment advisor. So between those sort of three, that was the bulk of the funding.
Okay. So how about the outlooks for what happens in a year and a half? You continue to drill, and you talk about putting some technical reports out for this thing. What do those prospects look like?
We're drilling. then we'll continue that aspect of the project for sure, as we think that there's lots of great other areas for us to continue to explore. Internally building our geological model, getting a better sense of what that looks like in 3 dimensions, you know, and we'll see whether or not some kind of resource estimate makes sense, if we're comfortable that we're at a spot where we've captured it, or if we think that it's not fully baked yet. So that's you know, that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, a bit of volatility in and around Argentina, and we've got elections coming up. I think that Argentina election is something to keep an eye on, and we're certainly cautiously optimistic about where things may land in terms of their stance on mining, their stance on currency controls, and maybe some of the issues that have challenged people wanting to put money and invest in Argentina, and then of course. The district is just super exciting right now. We've got ourselves putting out holes. NGX is active, making new discoveries. You've got Lundin Mining making corporate moves. You know, BHP taking a look at what's going on with us and getting active in country. So I think that just this whole sort of Vicuña district continues to grow. I can't think of a more sort of emerging new copper district in the world.
Yeah, no, it's very active. It might be the hot spot for all of exploration throughout the globe right now. That's for sure. Jamie, appreciate your time. Thanks once again for sharing your insight and providing us your editorial comments on the latest round of drill results, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Trevor.
That's your update from Filo Corp, everybody. Again, trading on the TSX with FIL.